Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We got the morning charts here this morning, and taking a look at the US dollar index, we've got the 60-minute chart. And as you can see, we've been in a pretty strong downtrend in the US dollar. In the past month and change, we've seen more or less a bear flag form, and we've had a little bit of shaking beyond the limits, but overall, it's still held within. It never really had a daily close above or below this kind of bear flag, and then we saw this little kind of rounding formation, a mini head and shoulders start to form after we've seen a couple shakes, and we got a breakdown out of that level. From there, last week we saw the US dollar have a nice surge up, which really actually it came back to test the breakdown level, which is what I anticipated earlier in the week. And with that strong move up in the US dollar, we saw equities pretty much get stepped on and sell off fairly sharply, bringing us back down near the lows that we saw a few weeks back. Now, looking in the past 24 hours, we've seen the US dollar fall back down and had a little bit of a bounce, but this morning it's coming right back down again, and it feels as though we're in this downtrend and we're forming a little bit of this another mini little bear flag. We had another downdraft, and with any luck, we're going to see the US dollar continue lower, and we do have a pretty major support zone here. If this level is broken, which came down and touched there last week, and we got that strong bounce off it, if we break below this level, I think we could see a pretty good slide on the US dollar to the downside, and that will likely help push stocks quite a bit higher. So that's kind of what I'm keeping my eye on right now. I do feel as though we'll see the US dollar come down to this area. The big thing is if it's going to break it and close below it, and then go into free fall mode, which will more or less send equities sharply higher. So that's what I'm keeping my eye on. Now, taking a look at commodities, here's the daily chart of crude oil. You can see we've been in a pretty strong downtrend in crude oil, and if I actually go to this 60-minute chart, you'll be able to see the pattern I pointed out there last week. We had the sharp sell-off to the downside, and we had this little rising kind of wedge here right up into resistance, and we didn't really have any volume behind the move. Volume was declining as price was moving up into resistance, and I pointed out that it's got pretty major, it's got resistance here, and we've got this support trend line that's held up several points, and the more points it has, the bigger, if it breaks, the bigger the fall will be. So we had a pretty good breakdown last week, and we saw this was also happening as the US dollar rallied up to test its breakdown zone. So as the US dollar moved up, we saw crude oil break down and actually go into a kind of a free fall mode. Came right down to a key support zone, which was right in the middle of all this congestion and a lot of volume that we had down here. So this morning we're seeing it actually have a little bit of a bull flag to the upside, and it's just starting to break out and break above the previous high. So it looks as though we might see crude oil actually form more of a base here, and it could extend for several more sessions, and from there we could see the crude oil actually start to reverse and go to the upside. But just jumping back to the daily chart, I have a bit more of a feeling that we're going to see crude oil trade sideways a little bit longer. We could be in this this bigger kind of channel, and we might see it just bounce and work its way higher over time. But from there, we'll have to see how the price action plays out, because it still could be somewhat of a bearish pattern. But this type of sell-off that we had here, this big waterfall and this bounce, this is actually signs that I think it's trying to put in a pretty good bottom here. And overall, I think we're sideways for crude oil, so it's not a good investment in my opinion right here. It's going to be fairly choppy, and it's going to be working its way, I think, a little bit higher. But up until then, we really need to let it unfold and provide something more tradable before we take any action here. Now, looking at the gold chart, this is a 4-hour chart of gold going back about a month and change. And you can see we're starting to get this pattern that I was pointing to about a month and a half ago. I was pointing out that, or about a month ago, we're starting to get these, we have this nice surge up on big volume, then you get a sharp pullback, and then you get another surge to a high, and then you get a pullback, and then you get another surge to a high. And it's these three rising tops that usually lead to a pretty sharp decline in gold. And these waves, each wave kind of signifies some major issues in headline news happening in Euroland and in the US. And you just see the fear. Everybody flocks to the precious metals, and it kind of calms down. Then we get another wave of bad headline news in the market of something happening, and we had another push up last week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have a feeling, looking at the short-term chart here, I'll clear this in just a second. It looks as though it's starting to top here, and we'll probably get some type of pullback. And then from there, I do have a feeling we're going to see probably one more push to a new high in gold, and then I do think something's going to be resolved, and I think we're going to see some fear be eliminated in the market, and we'll probably see gold come soaring down extremely sharp in the next month or so. So I think that's kind of what's playing out as we speak. And if I just clear this chart and just zoom in a little bit, this the 4-hour chart is just starting to show a little bit of kind of toppy price action. We've had a nice move up, but we went up into a new high, and we just saw some pretty strong selling to the downside. This chart really doesn't show it all that well, but we had a pretty nice move up here, a 20-point move, and then a 20-point move right back down again. And that's just a sign, to me, that's just a sign that the gold market's getting a little overdone right now. I wouldn't anticipate a pullback to about the 1800 level. And then I think we'll probably maybe see it start to work its way back up again. But that's where we stand right now. Looking at silver, silver finally caught a big bid, and we saw it move up sharply last week, the end of last week, and this morning it's gapped up and is trading a little even higher. So we're starting to see it work towards that 46 to 48 resistance level that I pointed out a long time ago. Silver's got a pretty ugly chart, more or less. Overall, it's trading in a very large range between these lows and this high, and it's been trading right in the middle with somewhat a bearish price action. We've seen strong volume moves to the downside. Saw a little bit of a bear flag starting to form here on light volume, indicating we're probably going to see prices pull back or continue a little bit lower. And instead, we got a pop. And really, silver is a very tough one to trade. It does move extremely fast, large percentages on a daily basis, and the chart patterns are never really that clear on a shorter term basis. So right now we're trading within the big range, right in the middle of it. I do expect it to move up sometime in another month or so, sometime up to 46, 48 area, at which time that level is going to be going right into this key volume here. We had tons of volume traded up at this top before we saw silver just get crushed and come to the downside. So by the time it gets up there, we're going to see all the people who got in getting out at break even after they saw almost half their investment disappear within a couple days shortly after there. So that's kind of where we stand right now. Looking at the SP 500, here's the daily chart of the SPY ETF. And you can see we had that bounce, came up into more or less filled a gap that we had in here, came to the 14 period moving average and sharply gapped lower and worked its way back down near the lows. Just a sign that we're starting to get pretty toppy. If we were to zoom out in the market here, if the program will just load it, I do feel as though we're going into some type of price action very similar to what we saw right back in here, and I think we could see some pretty severe chop going forward, and I think we could even see some new lows made. And I think we've got several weeks actually of this market to consolidate. A lot of people were trying to pick a bottom. We did catch a bounce in there and got some of it, but I think we're going to get into this volatile chop that we saw back here last summer, and it's going to be very tough to trade, and there's going to be real no trend other than sideways until we do get a breakout of that pattern. So going to be just keeping a close eye on some potential setups. We'll be taking small positions because volatility is very high. You don't want to have a lot of money on the table because we're seeing 5% moves in the market almost on a daily basis. And if you use any leveraged ETF, you're looking at or triple leveraged ETF, you're looking at 10 to 15% moves in one day. So you definitely do not need a large position to make half decent money or potentially lose half decent money. So you got to be very cautious during this time and trade small. Taking a look at the futures chart this morning of the S&P, show you where we're trading at. Last Friday there, we saw a nice run up in the morning. We had a nice move to the upside, and then later through the session pretty much sold off into the close. And in overnight trading and pre-market this morning, we've seen the index work its way up. We're trading up about 1% right now, so we're gonna have a nice gap to the upside. We're starting to see on the 10-minute chart here all the moving averages cross back over, and that's a good sign. I still feel as though we're going to get maybe a little bit of a pullback this morning, probably come back into these moving averages, and then maybe we'll find some traction here, which this will also be a support zone about 1132, which happens to be a pivot low, a pivot high, and a consolidation here. So there will be some volume traded, and if we do get a pullback into there, these moving averages should also pull up in the next couple hours or hour or so, and it should also act as support. So I do feel as though the market is trying to put in another bottom down here, but we're going to be very cautious and kind of see what Monday has in store before we start to get too involved with anything. Anyways, that's it for now, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Bye-bye.